You know when a memory seems to disappear, but it keeps watching you from afar? For years, I thought my mind had made it all up. But when it returned, I realized it had never left. And if you stick around until the end, you'll understand why I could never sleep in the dark again. I grew up in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone. Simple houses, dirt streets, and that heavy silence when the sun went down. My father liked to camp. He said the fresh air cleansed the soul, but I never liked forests. Something in them watched me. Even as a child, I could feel it. There were eyes among the trees. I remember the first night at that camp. The fire crackled and my father laughed with his friends. My cousin and I went exploring a bit, even though we were scared. We found an old metal structure, perhaps from a forgotten park. We climbed to the top, and then we saw someone down there, a man standing still, his face covered by something dark. He looked at us but didn't move. For a second, the wind stopped. No sound, nothing. My cousin tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. We ran back to the tent, pretending nothing had happened. No one would believe two children talking about a man with a face covered in blood. The next morning, my father was discussing a news story. They found a body near here, he said. The air grew thick. I didn't say anything, but my heart knew. It was him. That man wasn't lost. He was hunting. Years passed, but the feeling never went away. In dreams, I saw that face again. Sometimes covered in mud, sometimes smiling, but always looking at me. I told myself, it's just in my head. Until the day I found something familiar, in a place that made no sense. It was on the train. I was coming back from school when I saw a man dressed as a clown. He stood in the doorway, blocking my exit. The others laughed, thinking it was a street trick. But his gaze was the same cold presence I'd felt that night in the forest. The train stopped and I ran out. People laughed, but I trembled like I had when I was a child. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard footsteps in the hallway. And then, someone knocked on my second-story window. 3 sharp knocks. I froze. You're dreaming, kid. I wish it were true. The next day, I found a crumpled note on the sidewalk. On it, a single word written in red letters. I'm back. I pulled out old photographs from the trip, trying to make sense of it. And there he was. In the background, among the trees, the man with the blotchy face. The same one who watched me, the same one who followed me. And in that moment, I realized he never left. The sound of rain hitting the window sounded like slow footsteps on the roof. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face blurred between flashes of lightning. And when a clap of thunder lit up the room, I swear I saw something move in the corner. I spent the rest of the night awake, staring at the window. The glass was fogged up, but it looked like it had fingerprints on it. In the morning, I told my mother everything. She turned pale. She told me to forget it, to never talk about that man again. How did she know? Over the next few days, I started hearing things. Sometimes at night, the kitchen faucet would turn on by itself, or the radio would turn on with static, whispering phrases that weren't music. I wrote it all down in a notebook, trying to prove I wasn't crazy. One morning, a sound came from under the bed, a light scraping like nails on the floor. I looked underneath and nothing. But when I lifted the mattress, there was a note stuck to the wood. Do you remember the forest? I walked over to my father. He was silent for several long seconds. Then he simply said, I promised this was over. Those words froze me. He took an old box from the closet and threw it on the table. Inside, photos from the same trip, but in each one the man was closer. My father confessed that it wasn't the first time he'd seen him. He said that before I was born, that man followed him in his dreams, that he always appeared near places where something bad would happen. He's a warning, my father said, but I don't know of what. That night I dreamed of the camp again, but everything was frozen like a black and white photograph. The man approached slowly. He held out his hand, and I woke with a dark mark on my arm. I decided to return to the spot. I needed to know if he was still there or if it was all in my head. I arrived at the forest at dusk. The same silence, the same heavy air. But there was something new. A wooden cross embedded in the ground. On the trunk of the cross, a name. Mine. I felt the ground disappear. Behind me, a crack. I turned and saw the same figure standing among the trees, motionless. This time, he had no face. I ran without looking back. The sound of his footsteps followed me to the car. I got in, slammed the door, and only when I sped off did I realize. On the passenger seat was a new photo. Me, sleeping. Taken that very morning. As I entered the main hallway, I felt the air change. The musty smell was the same as it had been in my childhood. Every footstep echoed, as if the house were breathing with me. The walls seemed narrower, as if the structure were slowly leaning inward. The first door on the left led to my sister's room. She always said she saw someone inside when we slept. At the time, I laughed about it. Now I can't. The doorknob was cold, damp, as if it had just been touched. I pushed open the door and the air seemed denser, heavier. The torn curtains danced even without the wind. In the corner, the old porcelain doll still sat. Her face had new cracks, and one eye was missing. When I looked in the mirror, something reflected behind me. A short, still, motionless silhouette. I turned quickly. Nothing. But the feeling that something was hiding behind the curtain was suffocating. When I went to the curtain and pulled it open, just a cracked window, nothing more. But on the glass there were small handprints, and they were fresh. I went to the curtain and pulled it open. My throat went dry. The memory hit me like a blow. My sister and I used to play hide and seek there. But one time, she hid and never wanted to play again. I remember that night she ran out of her room screaming that something had whispered her name. My parents thought it was a nightmare, but I heard it too. And that whisper sounded exactly like the one I heard just now. As I left the room, the door slammed shut behind me. I screamed, but the sound seemed to fade into thin air. The house fell silent until I heard something coming from the basement. 3 slow knocks, as if someone was trying to get out. My entire body froze, but I knew that sound wasn't new. It was the same one that woke me up at night when I was 7. The same sound my parents used to say was the house settling. But now, I knew it was a lie. I pressed the flashlight and took the first step toward the basement. Each step cracked like bones breaking, and at the end of the hallway I saw a small figure, crouched, watching me. And when the light touched him, he smiled. In that moment, I realized that what was left in that house wasn't a memory. It was something that never went away. In that moment, I realized that what was left in that house wasn't a memory. It was something that never went away. In that moment, I realized that what was left in that house wasn't a memory. I stepped down the first step and the knocking stopped. The silence was so absolute I could hear my heartbeat. The flashlight trembled in my hand and each step seemed to echo for miles. The air smelled of rust, dust, and something sweet, almost rotten. Downstairs, I noticed the floor was covered in circular marks, deep scratches as if someone had tried to get out. The center of the basement was wet. Old moisture mixed with something dark. The light flickered 3 times, and on the wall, I saw the drawing my sister and I had made as children. I knelt down and touched the drawing. The ink was damp as if it had been done just minutes ago. It was then that I heard the voice, faint but clear. I turned and there she was, small, pale, with the same eyes as my sister, but her face was wrong. Her skin felt like wet paper melting in patches. She reached out and pointed to the floor. I followed her gaze and saw a small door covered with old planks. Something was moving beneath, scraping. As I approached, I noticed a chain attached to the inside, and on it, a necklace. The same necklace I gave my sister the day she disappeared. My body froze, her voice came again, closer. I tried to scream, but the flashlight failed. Darkness swallowed me, and only that sound remained of something crawling quickly around me. Suddenly, I felt a hand touch my ankle. I pulled hard, but she held me with an impossible grip. The flashlight came back on, and I saw dozens of faces, half melted, emerging from the ground, all with my sister's eyes. I ran upstairs, stumbling without looking back. The voices followed me, pleading, laughing, calling my name. When I reached the surface, the night air seemed to be gone, and as I closed the door, I heard something whisper on the other side. I ran to the car, but the engine wouldn't start. I looked in the rearview mirror. The house was lit up, every window was lit, and from my sister's bedroom window, she was waving, with that same twisted smile. When I finally made it out, I didn't look back, but sometimes at night I still hear the knocking. 3, always 3. And when I dream, I see that basement. Her voice repeats tirelessly. And maybe I never really left that house. Maybe I'm still there trying to convince myself that what happened was just a memory.